When you think hockey, you think of a lot of things like the players, the coaches, the arena, the vibe. And somebody that has to bring the vibe is the play-by-play announcer. And we've got him right here, my friend Leigh Cunningham. Thanks for joining me,
No
Leigh.
problem, Dave.
You.
No, it's fine.
It's true that, the play-by-play announcer on a radio, the PA announcer, all of it is all part of the action, if you will, to bringing that vibe into the room. And you've been able to bring that to the Sarnia Sting, and not just the Sarnia Sting, but several places.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to all of that, but I always like to go to the beginning, your humble beginnings.
Mm-hmm.
You're born and raised in Sarnia?
Yep, born and raised here. Moved about a little bit, obviously, throughout my adult life, no, I was born and raised here. Spent most of my life over on Princess Avenue.
Okay.
And went to St. Helens School, which of course is now a housing development, and then on to St. Pat's, and just always loved the game.
Yeah. Were you a good kid?
You know what? I was one of those kids in class that was a bit of a smart aleck. I always had kind of a one-liner for different situations, but I wasn't, a real bad kid or anything like that. I just was a little outspoken.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I come by this honestly.
So give you a microphone and away you go.
Sure.
Yeah. But I remember you and I have known each other.
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah, a long time.
But I think it was maybe bartending. You were at Patty Flaherty's.
Yeah, I was at Patty Flaherty's for 4 years or so in the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
Before I got the opportunity to go to Saginaw.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed working in that environment a little bit. Occasionally you get a few people that, you weren't really, in communication with, in jive with, if you will.
I get it.
Yeah. I'm politely trying to say that you get the odd person that kind of, made you a little ticked off. But otherwise, it was very good. Met a lot of great people there over at Patty Flaherty's. And yeah, I enjoyed that time.
Yeah. So what was the first, before even announcing, what was the first taste of hockey that you said, oh, I really like this game?
I 5, 6 years old. I mean, I was just mesmerized by it. I remember one of my grandfathers bought me a hockey jersey.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a Montreal Canadiens jersey. I was really, really young. I mean, like 4 or 5, 6, something like that. And of course, I'm not a Montreal Canadiens fan, but it did spark. It did spark the interest. And another thing that kind of was a big deal back then, back in 1970-71 season, SO stations around the country had these books and little stamps of NHL players called power players.
Oh, really?
And so my grandfather, because he lived fairly close to an Esso station that used to be, I guess in the plaza where McCarthy's North is, and right over there on Colburn, I guess. And that was another thing that sparked it. But it was just, for me, it was cards and magazines and these power players. But I was just kind of mesmerized by the game at a very early age, and and then obviously playing it as a kid, that helped to foster the love of the game, and it's just kind of gone from there.
Were you any good at playing the game?
I wasn't bad. I was a good road hockey player, but not bad. You know what? My feet weren't great. My hands were pretty good, but I would say that I was a good house league player. No more, no less. But the game was my life. I mean, you played maybe once or twice a week and maybe practiced once a week. And that was the highlight of my week. Trust me. There wasn't much else going on. Maybe Happy Days on Laverne and Shirley on Tuesday night or something.
Wow. You're dating yourself.
Well, I should be. But no, the game's just, it's been everything to me.
What's the, I've always found you're just a unique announcer. I just want to say, and I mean that in a good way. Like, I've often teased you. Do you have a thesaurus that you look up to learn words? Like you've got these words that you're just, what a play-by-play announcer should be, just so descriptive about it. What's your preparation for all this?
Well, I prepare a lot. I mean, I put a lot of time into it. I kind of feel that, especially at this stage of the season, that every play-by-play broadcaster in our league should be able to take two teams they don't normally cover and still do an adequate job of calling that game. Yeah, there's a lot of hours put into it, and like I just think you're doing the listener a disservice, and the Sting fan, and whomever's listening, a disservice if you're not prepared and you're not informative. You know, I probably gather more information than I really need to have, but it's nice to have it just in case. You know, you're right, and it's. You know, it's just a way of going about it, and I love words, and I, you know, and that was the good thing about the radio part of it, because I did television for a while too. But the onus is on you to paint that picture and create that environment, and I love that. I love that. That's a great part of it for me.
Well, I know, like that the secret's out. Like when you have a 7 o'clock game here, you're here at like 4 o'clock, 4:30.
Yeah.
And you've probably already done some prepping at home, and then you're here. And I know I'm careful about walking in and saying hello, because if you're in the zone, I'm just like, hi, I'll leave you alone. But that just shows, your professionalism to the whole part of what you're doing.
Yeah, it's important to me. Again, I don't want to cheat the listener. I just I put myself in a fan's shoes and from their standpoint, and I believe that the most that you can put together, not just of the Sarnia Sting, but the whole game of hockey around the OHL, you know, just anything connected to the game. I think it's just really important to have that at your disposal when you need it, and you know, and I like to be enthusiastic. I certainly get involved, and it's kind of ironic because my own personality is such that, you know, I'm pretty reserved. I'm actually quite shy about, you know, being and doing different things, and I like to keep a kind of a low profile. But when that red light goes on, and the telecast or broadcast starts, in my case, where we go.
You got a switch.
I think that's fair.
It's funny because I sit across from you and I watch, right? And you're very animated.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't want to be too close to you for fear you might give me a backhand or something. But you really, no, your emotions really get into it. And I think that's what brings out a lot of your voice to the listener.
Yeah, I remember one broadcast partner of mine years ago had a light colored jacket on. And by the time the game was done, I was moving my arms so much and had a pen in my hand. He had 3 or 4 ink marks on this blazer that he was asking me to replace after the game. But just an example. I think somebody said you look like a maestro at an orchestra with your gestural nature, but again, I only know one way to do it. I only know one way to do it. I only know one way to prepare, and I have a hard time deviating from that.
The resume, I had to write it down so I wouldn't forget. You were with London, North Bay, Windsor, Saginaw, and then I think it was like 2015 when you started here.
Yeah, I came back here in 2015. Toughest decision I've ever had to make in the business.
Why?
I loved it in Saginaw. They treated me tremendously. It was a really, and it was a neat environment because it was still relatively new to the OHL product, and in some cases, people following the game of hockey. And a lot of the job to inform and educate and lead people by the hand as to why to come to the Dow Event Center for a Spirit game rested on myself. And I was, I was doing, I don't know, 6-8 radio appearances every week, and it was just a lot going on because you got billboards there, and then I worked with the 4 major television networks that represented Flint, and the Great Lakes Bay region comprising of Midland, Saginaw, and Bay City. So it was busy. It was a really busy job because you had your travel, and there's a lot more travel from Saginaw. I mean, it doesn't seem like much, but you had an extra 2 hours to and from. It adds up. But no, it was a great experience there. But coming back to my hometown, it was. It's been a great thing as well.
It had to be an emotional decision.
It was very much so. And I talked to the immigration lawyer who had been, because each year I had to obviously resubmit my paperwork to indicate that I was still employed by the Saginaw Spirit and things of that nature. And I said to the lawyer after 7 years, I said, does this put me in a better position to get something more permanent in the United States? And she said, not necessarily. And I had been talking to Sue Storr over at Blackburn Media, and I decided to come back, and tough decision, but it's been great. I've enjoyed it. 9 years on the air with Blackbird Media.
Yeah.
Great people over there. They've supported our broadcast and what we're trying to do, and they do it without any hesitation, and just a good group over there.
And I imagine, you mentioned Sue's store in there, and in all the years that you've done this, one of the things I think would stand out likely would be the relationships that you've been able to foster over time. And when you go to Saginaw on behalf of the Sting, are they rolling the red carpet out for you still?
Maybe a little bit beforehand. A few years ago when it first happened, and I remember calling Sting and Spirit games when I got back to Sarnia. Was a little, you had to train yourself a little bit after 7 seasons with an organization. But no regrets. It's been a great stay here in Sarnia, and if they want me, and if I'm still physically able to do it, I'd like to do it for at least a little while longer.
Yeah. Well, I think we'd like to keep you around.
Well, I'm hoping so. I mean, just father time can rear its ugly head a little bit, but if I'm still functional, I'd still like to make a contribution.
I want to talk about Patrick DeRoche with you, and I interviewed him a few weeks ago. And he said, really great things about you, and your knowledge is a big part of it. But this isn't just a lot of times there's a radio relationship and nothing beyond that. But when the switch goes off on air, you guys have become really good friends.
Yeah, we have become very, very good friends. He's a good man, good family man. We love to talk about the game of hockey. We like to, shoot the breeze about other stuff over a beer or something every now and again. And, he's been so helpful just through some different circumstances. I've had to move 2 or 3 times over the last few years. And he's the first person there to offer his assistance and his help. And, he's got a bunch of dollies, and he's got all the equipment to move. I have none of that.
Good friend to have.
So no, but he's just been terrific. And I was kidding with him the other day when we were doing the Hall of Fame induction that he's got a move coming up himself. So I would think that maybe I'll get a text to
it's your turn.
Pay it forward a little bit. But just a tremendous guy and a very much valued relationship.
Yeah. Talk about the Hall of Fame that you just mentioned. I know that just happened recently. And, Dr. John Vargo and Jeff Farima in there. But then I was watching, not to take anything away from the other guys, but when you got to Patrick, there was a love conversation that came out when you spoke about him.
Well, we'll be broadcasting together for 10 years next year. That's that's a long tenure. And, I felt good for the man. It's a great honor to have one of your, in his case, junior organizations think of him that much, and rightfully so. He's got the numbers to back it up. He's done a lot of things. He was a goalie coach here for a little bit, and again, he's been on the air representing the interests of the Sarnia Sting through those radio broadcasts for over 10 years now. And between the television broadcast and the radio broadcast and all the the media initiatives that the Sarnia Sting put out there, it's all collective in what we're seeing these days in this building. And it's just been remarkable how this has flourished and become the place to be on, say, a Friday or Saturday night. And a lot of people have done a lot of great work. That Sting office is full of tremendously resourceful and clever and innovative individuals, and collectively it's working.
Well, you even talk about the Hockey Hall of Fame and the setup that they've done there.
It's tremendous.
The NHL wall there and everything. And kudos to Jake and his team for all of that. You're known to be very welcoming. I was listening to an interview you did a couple of years ago. You were celebrating your 1500th. See, I can't even say it right. Game, and I know you had some time on the ice here. And one of the things they talked about was how welcoming you are to the other radio personalities that are coming into the stage, I call it. Right? And why is that important to you?
Because I was in that position once before myself, where you were looking for people to help you out and find your way and find your footing in the game. And from a broadcast perspective, I remember, years ago, just so many really, really good individuals that helped me along. Dave Schreiber in Ottawa, Larry Mavety in Kingston, Jimmy Gilchrist, the longtime voice of the Kingston Frontenac, Steve Bell in Windsor, Gary Dalladay in Peterborough. These were individuals, Gino Cavallo in Sault Ste. Marie. These were all individuals that helped me along. So that's what you do. That's what you do as a person. That's what you do as a colleague. You help people along, and if there's younger broadcasters that are trying to find their way, and of course I'm helping them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You're inspirational in that sense, and I mean that sincerely, because you've helped me along the way. I mean, you've heard me say I stepped into this, and I don't even know how to spell sports. I'm still learning how to spell it.
Yeah. But
you've been helpful to me, and so I can concur that you are like that, and it's whispered around, that pay it forward philosophy that you have. It shows up, just so you know.
Well, I appreciate that, and I don't do it because I want pats on the back or I want people to say nice things.
It doesn't come across that way.
I do it because I genuinely want to do it and help people out.
Yeah, I get asked a question. I'm a little different than you in the sense that I have a little more freedom with what I can do on the language side of things.
Yes,
I'm on TikTok and that sort of stuff. But I see people asking me all the time, how do you get into this game of commentating? Like, I don't do play-by-play, and I would never want to do it, but how do you get into the game?
In terms of
how do you become a play-by-play? How do you get on air? Yeah.
Luck, timing.
I mean, you got to have the skill. I get that.
Yeah, luck and timing. My first year in the Ontario Hockey League was 1998-99. I had the privilege of calling the London Knights that year, and it was a year that they went to Game 7 of the OHL Final against the Belleville Bulls. And they beat some great teams along the way. They beat Sarnia in the first round back in 1999. That's right. We were talking about that. That was a good team. Peter Sarno was winning a scoring title, I believe, that year. And, that was a really, really good hockey club. And they ended up beating Plymouth, which was the #1 rated team, I believe, in the CHL. Dave Legwand was on that team. That was another stacked team. And then London went on to beat Owen Sound. All of a sudden, you're in the final in your first year in the league, and you always say, "Well, it's going to be like this every year." Where we're calling hockey games in May. This is terrific. But of course, that's not the way that it necessarily works. But that was the start.
So you're just hanging around the right people at the right time, and somebody said, "Hey, do you want to put a microphone on your head?"
I think that's fair. I had been in radio. I was doing, I had been doing sports at AM 800 CKLW in Windsor.
Oh, CKLW, wow.
Actually the old Big 8. But but I had left the business for a couple of years and was able to get a break, and I've been able to do it ever since.
Yeah. Do you rehearse? I know you prepare your notes and your stats, but
no. Like, for example,
standing in front of a mirror.
No, never,
talking to yourself.
never anything like that. Although when I was really young, I probably did a little bit when the TV was on, and heard as much from my mom that wondering who I was talking to in the basement, considering I was alone. But I think in your mind when you're watching a game, especially when I was young and not quite doing it yet. Yeah, absolutely. I think you kind of go through it in your head as to how you might approach that play or that kind of thing. I think that's fair.
Yeah. The NHL is something that I know you're passionate about that as well, but I think people might want to know, do you have a favorite team?
No, I've been a New York Ranger fan since I've been a kid. Well, when I was young, everyone was either a Canadiens fan or a Leafs fan, Bruins, Chicago. I said, I'm going to be a little different. And when you're young and impressionable, different things kind of stoke you a little bit. And I was always a big fan of the New York Rangers uniforms.
Oh, yeah.
And, there's a couple of players on that team that I liked a lot. And I learned so much about those players and teams through Hockey Illustrated and hockey cards. That's where I learned most of what I knew about the NHL from back in the day. And it was ironic because I've been a New York Ranger fan ever since, but Bobby Orr was my
Orr gets the
he
star.
was my hero when I was a kid growing up. I was just mesmerized by Bobby Orr, and I remember it was funny because I should bring it into you someday, but I got a report card in grade 7 from when I was going to school in St. Helens, and in the comments section was, Leigh would be much more better off if he would focus on his studies as opposed to reading Bobby Orr all the time.
Is that right?
I'll bring it into you. I'll bring it into you. And I thought to myself, that's about right.
That might have been the start for you, eh? Maybe
it was almost the end in that class. The teacher at the time was just getting a little upset about my lack of.
Do you have a collection of hockey cards?
Yes.
Are you a collector?
Oh yes, yes. It goes way back. And
just NHL? Like do you do
No,
NHL
I got some baseball.
too,
Mostly primarily from the 70s and 80s, but a lot of 70s baseball and a lot of 70s, 80s.
You trade
hockey.
and sell and buy.
I haven't lately, but over the years I've been very active. And what I would do is I would go on eBay or whatever and try and buy big lots of cards and take the ones I need, replace the ones that might be better than the existing card I have, and then put them back out on the market and recoup some money.
Right.
Did it a lot.
Traveling, you mentioned earlier, is a big part of what you do, or just like a player would, right?
Yeah.
Do you ride the bus?
Yep.
Yeah.
But most of the time.
Yeah.
The odd time we'll go up as a group. Usually it's myself and Patty and Kevin Morgan, the video coach for the Sarnia Sting. Sometimes Mark Lavin, the assistant GM, will jump in.
So does that give you an opportunity? Like, do you talk to the players? Do you get to know them personally, or
wait for them
to approach you?
No, to a degree. Yeah,
you're not becoming best buddies.
Yeah, but you want to interact with them a little bit so that if you're in an interview situation, you know exactly what to ask them and a little bit about their background and how they got to where they are here, and that's all important stuff in order to formulate an interview.
Yeah. I want to talk, it always comes up, mental health in this game, and I want to kind of shift a little bit too to what you've seen change of the game. But mental health, like the Sting has a mental health coach.
Yeah.
And what do you think it is, like aside from the traveling and being away from family and all that stuff, that there's a lot on these players aside from performing expectation that they signed up for.
No question, and I think that has been amplified by social media without question. I just think that it sounds a little cliche, but when you think about mental health, I look at it as maybe we got to individually take a look in the mirror and say maybe we got to be a little better to each other. Yeah. And I don't want to sound like I'm overly philosophical or anything like that, but I just think that the level of respect and the level of goodwill out there right now is kind of lacking from time to time, and I can understand why the pressures of doing what you do and becoming a young adult can get to you. It's very important that we eradicate those barriers that have kids feeling that way. We grew up in a different time.
We did.
When I was in high school, when you called your girlfriend, you did one of these on a phone that was hanging on the wall.
Come on, Leigh, you did one of these.
Well, maybe to start, and then we graduated to the punch board. But that just sounds so obsolete now.
I know.
Because of the readily available information and. I don't want to get too philosophical. I just kind of think that we need to be a little better to each other.
I was out just wandering, waiting for my wife the other day, and I walked into Value Village, and I always like to see gadgets there. And there was a rotary dial phone. Yeah. And I stopped for a moment, and I thought, boy, I had a really long cord on mine. It was stressed. And it made me think. And this coming from a guy who pretty much makes his living on social media, but you're not, other than X
Yeah,
You're not on social media.
No, I don't do much of it. I have it on X because I like to relay information about the Sting, be it initiatives they're partaking in. And they do a great job in the community, just as a little sidebar. But I more or less use it as something to relay information more so than add input a whole lot. The odd time I'll, put something in if I feel appropriate, but it's not something that consumes me, no.
You're not on Facebook?
No. Yeah. No Facebook or anything like that. I just, again, I like just kind of, now Facebook Marketplace I am on.
Oh, okay. So you have a Facebook account.
I do, but it's strictly to buy and sell. Like I've turned in.
Looking for the hockey cards.
Yeah, well, hockey cards. I think I've turned into Fred Sanford a little bit. I mean, like I just, like buying and selling stuff. And if I could call hockey games and just go to flea markets and auctions for the rest of my life and make a good, right. I'd do it in a minute.
Yeah. Again, going back to the relationships that you've fostered over the years, is there any, and I know you don't want to leave anybody out or whatever, but is there somebody in particular that, like, if I said pick one right now, that stands out?
In terms of an influence?
Yeah.
My mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just because in the early days of it, she kind of helped me stay in it, because you don't make anything for a long, long time, and you gotta build it up. And she suffered from MS a good chunk of her adult life, so she had this old Honda car that I was taking to and from London, hoping that parts weren't going to be strewn on the 402. And right. But no, I don't want to get too much into it because I don't. But no, she passed away way too young, but she was really instrumental. And but there's a tie. There's so many 1B influences. We'll call her 1A, but there's been so many 1B influences. Obviously, my dad is still around and still going strong.
What does he do?
He was a real estate agent in town. Worked for primarily Magic Realty for many, many years. My dad, Mike, is a good man and supportive of what I do. And
is he a hockey fan?
Not like, he watches Sting games and listens to Sting games, and I think that's more so for me. But yeah, he likes the game. Yeah, he's more of a football, basketball guy. But but yeah, no. But there's been, and then there's broadcasters that have really influenced. Danny Gallivan, who called the Montreal Canadiens games for years, is my all-time favorite. His ability to paint a picture was, there's no equal. Bob Cole was a favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Mike Emmerich, who was the lead broadcaster in the United States for a long time. And a guy by the name of Art Lewis.
Okay.
And everyone will know, who's Art Lewis? Art Lewis has conducted a morning show in Saginaw, Michigan for decades. Just a great, great man. And you know what? I was a little mechanical for a long time when I was doing play-by-play and trying to get every single statistic I could in there. Art, through his broadcasting, taught me to be more conversational, that you didn't have to jam every tidbit in. Yeah. He was a guy that, and I think the world of me. He was a great man too. I remember the day before I moved back here, had me over and some others for a big steak dinner send-off, but those would be the big influences for me. Yeah. Non-family, non-friends.
Right. Did you get to meet any of these big broadcasters?
No, I had communication with Mike Emmerich because he listened to my material. Oh, this was years and years ago, but no, unfortunately, I never met the others.
Yeah. I've always wondered, like, why you're not doing a podcast these days.
Because everybody is. Yeah. And I thought about it. Dave, the reason I don't is that, how do I put it? A lot of work with no guarantee of a return financially. Yeah. And I'm just not, I don't want to do this. Calling games and traveling is enough time away and spent, but I just think it's a little saturated right now. Yeah. And
you have to stand out, right?
Well, that's it. That's it.
I think you would, though. Like, the stories you've told me about stories. You've got, and let's talk about some of the interviews that you've done as well. Like, Name some of the ones that stand. You've got recordings of these.
Yeah, I do. I remember when I interviewed Gordie Howe for the
Yeah.
one and only time. It was a sports dinner in Windsor, years and years ago, and everyone wanted him. So at the end of the night, I had to play the patience game with that, and finally we were able to meet up in the room that housed the coats, or the coat room, or whatever you want to call it. And it wasn't very big, but it was one place you get some privacy.
Right.
So, and that was
good sound booth.
That was
all the
obvious.
coats hanging
Yeah,
there.
that was very, very memorable. I never interviewed Bobby Orr, but I have met him a couple of times again years ago. Well, he opened a hockey agency, which is still going, and he when he was younger, he used to travel about and go see clients that he represented. And there was a kid in North Bay when I was there that he represented, so he was there a couple of times. And there's some good ones.
Were you starstruck when you were talking to Gordie?
More so Bobby Orr.
Is that right?
I think where Gordie was concerned, I was at a sports dinner thing, so perhaps I had a couple of beers to mellow me out a little bit. But no, when I met Orr, it was pretty big deal.
Yeah,
big deal.
I met Gordie Howe. I don't know if I told you this story ever, in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Caesar's Palace, and they had this sports store around the back.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody knew he was there. And there was this big bookstore, and he had books in it. And you had to buy a book, and you'd sit with him. And I knew who Gordie Howe was, but he was a very quiet, soft-spoken
Yeah, he
guy.
was. He was very soft-spoken. You're right about that. But it was. I enjoyed talking about the fact he played with his sons and everything that he did. And I can't really go back in time. Don Cherry was another very enjoyable interview.
Right.
He was, and true story. First time I interviewed Don Cherry, it was in North Bay because he had a share of the Mississauga Ice Dogs when they first came in the league. So Mississauga and North Bay were in the same division, so they come up there, and I called the Mississauga office a couple of days before, and Don said, "Yeah, no problem. Tell you what, there's going to be people all over the place," which there were. "Come onto the bus, and we'll do an interview." And so, at the time, I think people were asking about his stance on import players, and we all knew about that. But I wanted to focus on those great Boston series against Montreal in the playoffs. And his time with the Colorado Rockies and just stuff like that. But I remember towards at the end of the interview, he said to me, "I've been kind of giving guys this, a few minutes into it. I let you go on because I really enjoyed the conversation." That meant a lot to me, especially early on.
Wow.
The other one that was, excuse me. The other one was kind of a little story to it. Denny Potvin, the great Hall of Fame defenseman of the New York Islanders, he was available for an interview when I was at AM 800 CKLW. So I would do a daily interview. So I'm arranging this interview with Dennis Potvin, and the girl who I worked with, Leah Hansen, because it was an afternoon show called Windsor Now, she came up and she said, "Oh, I've got an interview for you for today." And it's a group of synchronized skaters that are in town for an exhibition. And I said, "Can that not wait like a couple of days?" I got Denny Potvin. He's a Hall of Fame hockey player. He's a multi, Norris Trophy winner.
They'll wait.
And that she was not real pleased with me on that. And we bickered, we were very close.
Yeah.
But we bickered an awful lot. But I ultimately got my way. But and the skaters got their exposure a couple days later. So all was well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I would have been with you on that one as well.
I made a judgment call, and I still to this day feel it was the right one.
Yes, for sure. Let's talk more Sarnia Sting here. I think obviously it's when you're doing the play-by-plays, you really have to balance. I mean, obviously you're here on behalf of the Sting, but you really have to balance, don't you, between you sort of got to talk just as much as the opposition team as you do the home team. Or
yeah, well, yeah, and
you don't want to look like you're playing favorites.
No, you don't. I think you have to give the other team their respect, and I always try to do that. It's just the way I operate. I'm going to say a lot of very good things about the Sarnia Sting organization in the course of a broadcast. Naturally, that's where my slant is.
But it comes out genuine from you, though.
Well, but I just think that you have to give the other party respect and their due and all that. And it's just the way that I broadcast. It's it's all about the Sarnia Sting, but at the same time, you have to incorporate other people, other teams, other coaches, just because of the respect level. And I think that's something that I do and something I believe in.
Because when I listen to you, and I listen to you regularly, that's how I learned a lot, actually. You'll be like, you'll talk about the other team, and you'll be like, and there, like there's someone to look out for. Because he's this, and this. You listed out well. And
well, it's all educational, Dave. It's about teaching people about the Ontario Hockey League and why this is the best developmental league, in my opinion, in the world. It's the people and it's the individuals that have shaped it and molded it.
It's a tough league.
It's a great league, and I couldn't be more pleased about the current direction of the Sarnia Sting, both on and off the ice. We talked about the off-ice initiatives and effort not long ago in the interview. But on the ice, I think they're really doing a nice job. I mean, as we sit here right now, 4 Sting players are in the top 20 in rookie scoring. And, the future's really, really bright for this group. I like that bus in terms of the individuals that occupy it. And got a lot of respect for Alatang and, his group. And Dylan Sika, I think, has done a really, really good job. It's a good group to partner with. And when you're with good individuals, sometimes it takes away from, oh, here comes another 6-hour bus ride, or here comes another, weekend where, I'm tied up for however many hours. I mean,
it's a long bus ride to the Sioux.
Well, that's it. But it's the individuals that, you mentioned throughout the course of this discussion that really kind of give you the fuel a little bit to offset some of those days. But there's never been one day where I said, I don't want to go to the rink today since 1998. So, I guess that's saying something.
That speaks a lot for sure.
That's saying something.
The Sarnia Sting, they had a little while back, had like a losing streak of 8 or 9 games, I think it was. And is it fair to say, like, fans are really happy for you one day, and then it's almost like a wrestling match sometimes. It's like you can become the heel just in a second.
Yeah.
Fans, but they have the right to not be happy with their team?
Yes, well, sure. I mean, that goes with the the course of the situation. But you talk about that stretch, November into early December.
Yeah.
I mean, this team was so injury riddled, and this is a young team. This is one of the youngest teams in the OHL.
Yeah.
And they were so injury riddled, and they couldn't piece cohesive lines together. It was this piecemeal kind of interchangeable lineup due to attrition through injuries. And there was a couple of suspensions in there. Really tough to get anything going. And when it spirals downward, it can be really, really tough, and it can really test you. But what a response since. They've just been, they absolutely have. Right after that road trip to Eastern Ontario, they've been on a really, really good run since. They've been able to solidify their positioning in terms of the playoffs. I think a playoff spot is a real good bet for this hockey club with 20 games to go. But I just like what's going on with this organization. You look around this building, and aesthetically, you've got that Hall of Fame that you alluded to. All the dedications to players past, be it Jordan Kyrou or Jacob Chychrun or Steven Stamkos. They really have put this franchise on the map to be one of the best in this league.
Yeah. You mentioned Steven Stamkos. Did you get the opportunity to speak with him when he was
here? I did, and he couldn't have been more gracious that night where his jersey was retired. He was great. He knew that there was going to be everyone wanting, 5 minutes of his time. And, he couldn't have been more gracious. And, when you do something like that, you really hope that it goes as well as it did that night. And with the exception of it being about 30 below, I do remember that.
I remember that too, actually.
Because we had that little function afterwards, and I remember that we were ushered out of there, and all of a sudden you walked outside, and you're praying for the next car to be a cab.
Yeah. And what an event that was. I mean,
it was. It was great.
And he was, when we did the interviews with him, when we were done, I remember him saying, "Is that it, guys? Like, do you need more?" And
that's it. And
he kind of hung out. He wasn't expediting himself.
That was the exact approach that he showed throughout the visit. And great to see. Great individual. And obviously a legacy player here.
Yeah. You mentioned this team likely going to playoffs.
I think so.
That's where I think, and I don't just say that because I like the Sting, but there's a lot of strengths there, right? And I think even Dylan Sika recently said, like, it's nice to see this team starting to rally around each other. I think maybe sometimes we wonder, like, what's going on in the locker room? Do they like each other? Are they having arguments, or are they on the same page with? I'm a huge fan of Al Letang, right? And just observing he's a really philosophical guy, and he seems to bring that to the team.
Yeah, he's very thorough. He knows
and honest.
He knows what he's doing. Yeah, he's very forthright. You interview him, he's going to let you know how he feels, and that's refreshing.
Yeah,
you love to see that. And no, I just think there's great days ahead, and you look around this building on a game night, and so many.
The fans have been super supportive.
They're absolutely engaged.
Not much less than 4,000 people.
Well, and it's great, and it just adds to what everybody does here. The players, broadcasters, anybody that's connected to it, you get that type of environment. You can't help but to get ramped up and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about the game itself, and how I sort of asked Patrick this same question, like. The game has changed so much since even going back to when you got started.
Yeah.
How have you observed the change as far as maybe rules, refereing, what's allowed, what's not allowed?
Sometimes it's a little bit ambiguous. It's tough, and the officials have a real difficult job. They really do. I mean, it's so. Quick decisions have to be made. It's a thankless job.
Big target on your back.
No doubt about it. And a lot of people are kind of harping on the officiating a little bit when you look at various social media sites and everything.
Yeah.
And I get that, because there have been some times where you said to yourself, I think that they could have.
Do you have to bite your tongue, Leigh?
Sure. And that's one thing that I don't want to do.
Bleeding sometimes.
I don't think that overwhelming the broadcast with every grievance you have with every missed call is good broadcasting either. Fans are smart; they know if there's a mistake and whatnot. But it's a bit of a thorny issue right now. But you get so many of these officials that they're being. They go through the OHL, and then all of a sudden they're in the American League or their National Hockey League. So you're recycling that branch of the league quite often.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's a tough job, but I think by and large they do a good job.
Yeah. So what else has changed besides we talked about the refereeing, but
well, again, I get back to social media, because when I was working media in Saginaw, it was, and that's not that long ago. It was all print, and it was all radio.
Oh, right,
and in the States, billboards and all that kind of thing. Now, I don't know. You'd have to ask Lindsay Baxter from the Sting or something like that of what percentage of the outreach for the Sarnia Sting is, say, traditional media, and what sort of the non-traditional media, which I still equate social media to, although it's superseding everything, A, because of cost or lack thereof, and B, because of timeliness.
Yeah.
Basically, what used to be a long account of a game in a newspaper that you may have to wait however many hours for, you basically get a line, Sarnia 5, London 2. I love saying that, but no, and again, I got a lot of respect for the Knights. But something like that, and then people will, if they want to learn more about it, there's avenues they can take. It's much more immediate. It's much more concise than it ever has been. And I think maybe from my perspective, that's been arguably the biggest change.
And it's expected.
You're
I
right.
know, if I don't get the post game out, when sometimes it's canceled because of a bus ride or whatever, they don't come up and do it, and it's like, where's the post game?
Yeah.
There wasn't one. Oh, why? Because, and then people start coming up with their own ideas as to why because they lost back or whatever. And no, it was just logistics and.
And I think the size and the speed of the players is at an all-time high. There's a lot of great skill in this league, and always has been. But I think, right now. And I think the other big change, and really we don't know exactly where it's going to go, but the really recent decision by the NCAA
yeah, I was going to bring that up.
to now allow major junior players to, come to their ranks upon conclusion of their major junior career.
Yeah.
Again, I think more questions than answers where that's concerned right now, but it's something that certainly bears monitoring. You got Zach Felak on his way to the University of Vermont, and Tyson Doucette on his way to Colgate University. Great to see for those two young men. But those options are now available, and it's changed the landscape. I mean, you look at, three players that have come to the Sarnia Sting from the British Columbia Hockey League in Liam Beamish, Matthew Manza, and Jack O'Brien. All three of these players have been massive for this team.
It's created more opportunity for the players and for the team.
Well, you're right. And the fact that those players have come in and immediately meshed and gelled with their new teammates and new surrounding has been great. And I credit, the players for welcoming. I credit the coaching staff for making it a desirable place to be. And the results on the ice have been more than favorable of late. This team's playing some good hockey, and they're if you're not ready to play the full 50, 60 minutes, you're going to be in trouble against this team.
Yeah, and new commissioner for the OHL, and have you had a chance to talk with him?
Yeah, Brian Crawford, and he's been touring all the various locations around the Ontario Hockey League. Very nice guy.
I had 20 minutes with him.
Very nice guy.
He wasn't like, okay, I'm not going to go.
No. He's very idea oriented. He's very futuristic with his look at this league, and obviously the topic of expansion has become kind of a hot stove topic in the game and in this league over the last little bit. But no, he's a guy who's going to be very, very proactive, and he succeeds a man who held the position since 1979 in David Branch, and one of the reasons why I'm sitting here and you're sitting here talking to me is, Dave Branch, kind of put this league on the map, or certainly helped put this league on the map with, ruling it over the years and doing so, sometimes on his terms. I think he had an open policy, but ultimately he was the boss.
He knew what he was after.
Oh yeah, and you know what? Hey, this league has flourished as it has, in a lot of parts because of what he did.
Yeah, there's some of the other changes that may be coming, and it may already be happening, and I respectfully say it to some of the guys that I know here, but there's a generational change that's happening. People, shouldn't just say guys, I guess, but people have been involved in the OHL that are gotten older now. Mm-hmm. That sooner or later they're going to walk away and return. There's a new generation coming in, right? You even see it here, like you mentioned, like Lindsey Baxter and the team here. Young, fresh ideas. Yeah. That's going to be a tremendous effect on the OHL. You like say even the new commissioner, younger fella, right? Yeah. Do you think you'll always be on the radio? Will radio always have its place in the world of hockey?
Yes, I think so, but no, you make a good point. I mean, I would certainly hope so.
I think so.
It depends on the market. There's a few markets in the OHL that do not have radio, not many, but I still think there's a place for it. I mean, we're certainly one of
it's a part of the game.
Well, it's an outreach vehicle for the franchise, and it's been good because, we're online as well. Our broadcasts are online. Yep. So there's a lot of different ways to go about getting our broadcasts. So, people that are traveling in a vehicle or whatnot, you simply go into the app and, punch us on should you so choose. And, I still think there's a place for radio in the game.
I think it'll stay there forever.
Yeah, I agree.
And the reason I bring that up, obviously, because what I do is completely different. Like we're live on TikTok, we're live on Facebook and that. Yeah. But a lot of people go, "Oh, are you doing play-by-play?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not doing play-by-play. I don't want to read the numbers and the names of the jerseys on the back." But it's different, right? You know, like I do like live reaction, like, "Oh, wow, that looked like it hurt," like that kind of thing. But the response, like. There is, I guess what I'm leading to there is it's a part of the game, and there is an expectation. The fans of the Sting or any OHL team or any hockey team for that matter, but they're either a fan of the play-by-play guy, or they're not as well. Like, they're hard.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, he didn't know how to call that, and blah blah. Like,
hey, trust me.
Probably good why you're not on social media.
Right? I mean, you're not going to please everyone. Not everyone is going to love your style or your approach or your.
But you're a part of the team, I guess, is what I was.
Well, in some respects, I mean, they make me and Patty feel very welcome, and I mean, Patty is obviously a legacy personality for the Sarnia Sting, and they've been great to me. They include me in different things, and that's always nice, and a lot of that boils down to Dylan and Al. Making you feel like you're part of it, and it's appreciated.
Dylan's the guy I'll always say he's the first guy to come up and say hello to you.
Oh yeah,
he'll acknowledge you. I passed him the other day somewhere up the stairs, and he stopped and made sure that, and he had people, he's just that reach out.
His communication skills are tremendous. Absolutely tremendous.
And he's in a position to make some tough decisions.
Oh, absolutely. Right? There's no doubt about it. And hey, those guys were feeling heat back in November and December. A lot of people were saying, do this, do that, do that, but they stuck with what they believe in, and you got to do that. The minute that you stray from what you believe in terms of the formulation of a group and building your franchise, you're in trouble. You can't get wishy-washy because you feel a certain way about the development and the building of a product that you got to stay true to it. And there's going to be some obstacles along the way, and sometimes you have to improvise a little bit, but by and large, you have a philosophy as an organization for a reason.
Yeah.
And they've been very steadfast with that, with their players in the community, and
sticking to your beliefs is
accountability for their players and everyone within the organization. There's a reason why there's mission statements out there, and it's to uphold a belief within the organization and a belief within a dressing room to do great things. And again, I've said a lot of things that are right from the heart about this organization, and candidly. I may not. It's people ask me how tough would it be for you to pull away from it, and I said I don't know, but I don't really want to find out. I guess because it would probably.
What would you do, Leigh?
Probably just go out and get a normal job. I mean, think about it. I'm 58 years old. I don't think they're going to be necessarily knocking on my door for various lines of work. So. I do this and just try and hang in there.
Yeah. If you weren't doing this, if this didn't come along, where do you think you'd be sitting at 58 years old today?
You know what? People
say driving a bus or something.
No. But people often ask, like, do you have regrets? And I try not to have regrets in life. You do things for a reason. You look back and say maybe I could have.
Yeah,
but
you make mistakes.
I should have applied myself more in high school. I kind of goofed off to the standpoint that I couldn't necessarily go to a situation where I could go to a teacher's college or law school or something like that, because if it wasn't calling games, those two vocations would be two that I would be interested in. Teaching, because I just love information. I love history and geography and politics and everything that goes with it, and current events and that kind of thing. And people have said to me, law might have been a pretty good thing for you because of your ability to speak and your retention and that kind of thing. I don't know. I mean, whatever. I mean, that ship has sailed, so let's not get too crazy about it. But looking back, those two vocations would have been two things I think would have maybe fit for me. And if there was ever an opportunity to help out with a sports management course next door at Lambton College, I certainly would be interested in something like that and try to, spread my experience.
Yeah. Can you teach what you do? Like, can somebody, like, could we have a class, a master class, if you will, on how to be a play-by-play announcer?
A lot of it
is a skill that can be taught?
A lot of it is instinct, and but you can certainly teach the notion of preparation and how to go about, like, I mean, I'm old school. Like, I mean, I still have my paper set up with my ink.
I know.
Like, I mean, I've got my
like
little
don't
bullet
sneeze
points.
when you walk into the media room.
Yeah, my little bullet points. Well, that's where tape comes in. So,
Right.
but I that's just me. Like, I mean, the younger colleagues that I have in the league, they're all basically got a laptop in front of them and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Again, I'm very regimented. I can't just abandon my rather unique way of.
Leigh Cunningham's here and Pat's over here because he's taking up the desk.
Yeah, just with all these statistics and all this sort of thing, because I like having them around just to incorporate into the broadcast when need be. But I don't think I would necessarily teach that approach. It's a little bit archaic. So, but no, I think there's there's ways to do it, and the thing about it is, it would work really well with enthusiastic students. I think that for anything, it's got to be reciprocal. If you're going to map out different ways of going about it, it's always good if you've got a captive audience that, is sort of saying, hey, let's listen to that. And the thing about it is, take your own philosophy on doing it and shape it in your own image. I think it's probably the best way to look at taking someone's advice and then making it your own and incorporating it in your own style.
Yeah, perfect. We didn't talk too much about it, but I want to sort of wrap things up with this conversation. I know it was 2 years ago, March 2023, and you had your 15th, you mentioned it, but you had your 1500th game.
Yeah.
Your announcement, and again, you were given some time on the famous last words. I'll just take a minute.
Yeah.
But in that moment, you knew that was coming up. I remember maybe talking to you, about 10 games before, and you'd kind of like, wow, you were reflecting.
Yeah.
And then when you were talking, you were sharing your moments. And what was describe the feeling and what were your thoughts when you were getting ready to walk out there and share with this arena?
Just a certain level of appreciation.
Yeah.
Because I looked around that building and I saw many of my long time friends from high school and whatnot, and we had a great function afterwards. That maybe 5 or 6 people would show up, and it was a lot more than that, and that kind of meant a lot to me. And I just felt that at that moment, I just wanted to let people know how much I appreciated their, listenership and, having me, part of their evening when the Sarnia Sting are playing. And I just, I didn't know if I was ever going to get a stage or a forum like that to express that. And I just I wanted to thank some people, and because that meant a lot to me that the Sarnia Sting organization would do that for me. This is my hometown. I'm born and raised here, and it was a great night.
There was an emotional Leigh Cunningham out there. I remember the post that after the game, and we had some conversations, and I was eavesdropping on some of your conversations with others, and there's the emotional. There is an emotional side to Leigh Cunningham.
Yeah, for sure. Especially
sentimental guy, are you?
To a degree. Like quietly.
Yeah.
Quietly, not overtly necessarily, but certainly. Within, and again, I get back, when I brought up my mom, and she died in her mid-50s, I way too young, and that kind of thing, and her input, sure, I'm going to get emotional. I'm not made of sawdust,
right.
So I of course, stuff like that makes you a little emotional.
Yeah. Well, Leigh, I'm glad to have known you for probably close to 30 years.
Yeah, a long time.
And I like that we've been able to reignite our friendship over, I'd say, the last 10 years.
Yep.
And I appreciate you. I'm a fan.
I appreciate that.
So honestly, and I've been after him almost 2 years for an interview.
Yeah.
And we finally made it happen. And that, when you talk about you have influences, you're one of those to me.
Yeah, I
appreciate
so many.
it. So
thank you.
I appreciate the time and the friendship and knowledge that you
I
bring
appreciate
to
the conversation, and anytime you want to do something like this, I'll let you know in 2 years.
Okay, I'll see you next week.
Yeah,
2 more years. I got to book it now.
That's right.
All right. Well, there you go. The one and only Leigh Cunningham, play-by-play announcer for the Sarnia Sting, and so much more. I hope this gave you a great insight. But as always, click the like and the love, click the share button so we can share Leigh's story and everybody else. But as always, that's all the time I got for you this week. Have a great week and an even better weekend. We'll see you next time right here in the show. Bye for now.